Good evening, everyone. Tonight is a meeting of the South Kingstown Planning Board. It is a combined regular and work session. The date is Tuesday, December 16th. The time is 6 p.m. Our first agenda item is roll call. Susan Axelrod.
Here.
Liz Carp.
Here.
Joe Murphy.
Here.
Robin Pothier. Here. Caper Wilson.
Here.
Armand Monaco.
Here.
And Maria Mack is here. Our first agenda item is a major subdivision comprehensive permit, William H. Baker Homestead. We have a request for an extension of the preliminary plan approval. Jamie, would you like to give us the details?
Thank you, Madam Chair. Staff did prepare a, bear with me here. Madam Chair, with regards to the agenda item associated with the William H. Baker Homestead, this was originally approved in 11/28/2023. They have an automatic 2 years. You have an extension request for 1 additional year, but not to oversimplify it, but if the planning board was okay, it would be a motion to grant an additional 1-year extension to 11/28/2026.
So the
All the
original,
original conditions stay in place.
so the original approval was 11/28/2023.
Correct.
Any questions on this from planning board members? Hearing none, would someone like to make the motion to extend this item?
I'll make that motion.
We have a motion from Susan. Do we have a second?
Second.
Second from Armand, was that, or from Joe? Second from Joe. Any further discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Nays? Motion carries. Next.
Thank you very much, I appreciate that.
Next agenda item is a public hearing, minor land development with Unified Development Review, greenhouse dispensary.
So, Madam Chair, again, as an update, the applicant is here. It was a continuation of a public hearing. I'm not aware that they have anything additional to submit this evening. I think the intent of continuing the public hearing was to allow staff adequate time to review the draft motion from 2 weeks ago, supplement that motion with comments from the town engineer, and also some revisions that were made to the landscape plan and some changes between the two. So staff has prepared a draft motion dated December 16th. It is in a red line format, so you can see exactly what was the original motion proposed 2 weeks ago and the changes to that motion. The only item I would correct is there is an R and an S. S is a duplicate of R.
Okay,
I'm sorry. What page are we talking about?
second page.
Thank you. Got it.
Once folks have finished looking at the draft and had the opportunity to ask any questions, this is still an open public hearing, so I will ask if anyone from the public wishes to speak. Jamie, thank you for making the changes in red.
Yes.
Again, I'm available if there are any questions on the change.
I wait for public comment to ask a question? or-
No, I think you can ask the question now.
So I have a question. So on the, at the last meeting, we talked about the driveway exit with a retaining wall and some confusion on the plans. Has that been rectified some way?
I think, Madam Chair, to answer Susan's question, the confusion was on the engineer representing the applicant that evening. It was clear on the site plans that were before the planning board
Okay.
that they were proposing it's called a masonry block retaining wall, small block units, commonly referred as a name brand of Versa or Mesa block. And that has been on the plans. Engineering and planning had no issues with that wall. I think the engineer representing the client perhaps was unfamiliar with that detail, but that detail is on the plans, and that detail also is on the approved plans for DEM.
Thank you.
Thanks, Jamie. Any other questions from board members? Joe?
Yeah, just, I guess two. One is the hours of operation. Are there any other regulations in town that govern the hours of operation for retail or this type of business? If so, do these differ from those? And
Joe, that'll take me a moment, but I believe they mirror state law and local.
With respect to this use or other uses?
This use.
This use.
if that's the case, then it's an easy question, easy way to answer it. I'm just wondering where we came up with those and whether it differed from
That
anything
was
else
in
or was the same.
applicant's submission.
The hours of operation come straight out of the local ordinance for retail cannabis.
Okay.
It's in the ordinance.
Would we be better off, instead of trying to specify 8 to 8, just specify that it's in conformance with, in case that changes, so that the applicant's hours could change accordingly?
I think,
Because once we put it in this, they kind of own that.
well, that's what they're applying under those provisions. We haven't heard any testimony that that is detrimental to their application or detrimental to their operations. Local regulations, in some aspects, could be more stringent than a state regulation. So for instance, this is retail, it has hours according to local ordinance. If state legislation changed to allow them to be open 24 hours a day, I'm not sure you would just want them to go with whatever state legislation there is versus when you have it at a local level.
And they could all would
They could
also apply it.
always come back and ask for an amendment to it. Or, Joe, what it would actually require is a regulatory change of a zoning regulation. So if, in my example, if state law allowed them to be open 24 hours a day, their approval mirrors local legislation. If they wanted to be open outside of that, they would have to propose a text amendment changing the hours of operation contained in the existing zoning code.
Okay, so I'm good with that one. The second question just had to do with the light pole. I remember us having conversations on trying to keep the height down so that it doesn't appear to be all lit up from the main street. That I don't necessarily remember that we landed on 20 feet. Maybe you just talked to why it was 20 feet, or why can't it be a little less, why can't it be less than that? 20 feet is still pretty high.
Yeah, no, they proposed 20 feet as a height. The People's Federal Credit Union in front of them is also 20 feet. I did go and check that. I also looked at the abutting properties. I think one of the important things is it's 20 feet total. And I think I made that clear in the motion. If you use a 5-foot base, you don't get to stick a 20-foot pole on that. It'd be a 5-foot base with a 15-foot pole for a maximum of 20. The illumination plans is also very reasonable. I think their hot spots are 1.5 to 2, which is lighting much less than this and less than the parking lot you walked in on. So from my perspective, reviewing illumination plans and foot candle plans, this is very low level.
And it's consistent with the surrounding properties.
It's actually lower, foot candle than the surrounding property.
Okay, all right, so that's my two questions, thank you.
3 and 4.
Any other questions? Liz?
Didn't we also comment on the lighting levels after the hours of operation? That there,
think we did.
if I'm recalling accurately, that there was a possibility of maybe having even lower levels when the building was not open.
Yeah, I think that's,
Do you recall?
I think what I understood from the applicant, that was an operational issue, that they still need to maintain some lighting and some security. I think part of it on that operational aspect is if they can reduce the lighting, they can reduce their electric bill. And typically the lights can be set on time. But we did not put it in the regulatory language because it is something that is extremely difficult to enforce. You know, if the lights don't go off at midnight, there's no staff to verify or check.
Other comments or questions? This is a public hearing. Is there anyone who wishes to speak? Seeing as we have no members of the public who wish to speak, would someone like to make a motion to close the public hearing?
I'll make that motion.
We have a motion from Caper. Do we have a second? Second from Armand. Any further discussion? Hearing none. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Nays? Motion carries. So we have a revised motion. If you have not completed a read of this, have a look now, and if there are any potential for changes or corrections, please bring them up now. Jamie, question, the revision to, actually, it's not a revision, to O with regard to the guarantee on the landscape materials, are we making the assumption, because this was not stated correctly in their plans, that any changes would have to go through the administrative officer? We mentioned it at the last meeting. Is that sufficient without it being in the motion? And hopefully will be corrected on the final version of their plans?
Staff will take care of that.
Very good.
And just for clarity for the applicant, there is a note on the landscape plan that basically allows your landscape architect, we won't mix words, do whatever he wants, because it says he can switch out, modify, change plant size, change varieties. We will have you modify that if you're making a change to the landscape plan, it requires administrative approval.
And we mentioned this at the last meeting, and he completely understood. Anything from anyone? Has everyone finished reading this? So we have a revised motion, minus condition S because it duplicates R. Would someone like to make the motion?
I'll make the motion.
Due to silence.
Is Joe doing it?
Yes. Please.
That's why we want you to make the
I
motion.
know. The South Kingston Planning Board hereby approves the application for a special use permit for the marijuana retail facility and grants preliminary plan approval for the greenhouse dispensary minor land development application proposing to demolish and redevelop buildings with associated site improvements on Assessors Plat 57-2, Lot 76, located at 711 Kingstown Road, Greenhouse Dispensary, Inc., applicant Offshore Development LLC, and Edgewood Farm Enterprises LLC owners. This approval is based upon,
You don't have to read this whole thing.
Okay?
You can reference, this is a draft decision that's been prepared. You can reference it in accordance with the draft decision that's been provided to you, with the correction of the correction that you made with the section S being deleted.
Wow,
So you don't have to read the whole
now
thing.
we'll all volunteer to do
But
it.
we would still reference the findings of fact and number of conditions of approval?
It's all here.
No?
As long as it's gotten out to people ahead of time, and people have it, you don't have to go through it all again.
Okay, based on council, the motion for approval, referencing the staff memorandum provided, which includes findings of fact 1 through 10, and conditions of approval A through R.
We have a motion from Joe. Do we have a second?
Oh, second.
Second from Susan. Any further discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor say aye. Nays? Motion carries. Thanks, folks.
Thank you.
Thank you, guys.
And, yes?
Yes. Lucky you.
Good luck to you all.
Thanks a lot.
Y'all guys have a great holiday.
Good luck,
Thank you,
thanks.
you too.
Before we move to the work session portion of our agenda, we need a designation of a duty member for the next TRC meeting, which is January 14th, 2026, a Wednesday. Is anyone available?
I am.
Great. Robin, thank you.
9 a.m.?
9 or 1, Robin?
9.
Thank you, Robin.
Very good. Moving on to the work session portion of our agenda, land use, Old Tower Hill Road, form-based code. Jamie?
Madam Chair, if we just may shuffle the agenda.
Sure.
To move municipal infrastructure, we have Rich Bourbonnais here this
Certainly.
evening, who's the Director of the Department of Public Service, and he was just going to give you a brief overview of sewer, water, and capacity.
Very good. Everyone okay with that?
Yes.
Can I ask about that? Are we not doing this tonight?
No, that's not on the agenda.
Isn't this the agenda I just got?
You can slide up, Rich.
That's the one I got in the mail.
Good evening, Rich. Good.
Good to see you again. So, I think I listened to one of the meetings, maybe a month ago, or more, where sewer and water use came up. And I think there were maybe a few things that there were gaps in the information, and
Okay.
perhaps I
Sure.
can fill those gaps
Sure.
if needed, but I didn't know, maybe if you just have questions that could help, or I can just ramble. I can talk.
Joe, you want to start?
Not questions, more just maybe I put it in context of what I was interested in. So, understanding the water and the sewer, trying to understand as we consider projects that would potentially result in higher density, where we have the capacity, and as we consider projects where there's proposed density pretty high, understanding whether we would, one, if we have the capacity, but even more so than that, because I know that whether we have the capacity or not, you're gonna look at on that specific project, but trying to understand what's that impact for the future. So it's not necessarily the projects in front of us, and obviously there's a project over now on Fairgrounds Road. My interest and my concern would be whether we use up the capacity such that maybe some of the neighbors that are in the area that's been paying their taxes for a long period of time, it wouldn't be available to them. And I don't think it's necessarily would result in approval or disapproval of a project, but whether maybe we should consider conditions of approval such as time dosing versus social dosing, so that we don't, we can, if we're getting close to capacity, we can move those peaks out or spread them. So those types of considerations.
And some of this has come about because often some of the projects that come before us, in particular comprehensive permits, aren't necessarily based on our current zoning. So if you're doing an analysis or long-term planning and you look at land mass and zoning, it's not necessarily indicative of what may occur.
Right, and the sewer system would have been laid out and designed in such a fashion.
Exactly.
To kind of address what the existing zoning was. So, yeah, I get that, and it's always a concern, but generally speaking, we're doing pretty well. What happens, the general process, so every home that wants to connect, every business that wants to connect, comes to us for a suitability request, effectively. And what that is just to say, do you have sewer available? And the answer is usually yes. If they're on a sewer line, yes. If they're not on a sewer line, they're required to make improvements, like a main extension or something along those lines. If it's in a situation like what you're seeing over on Fairgrounds, well, that request is a little different because it's a large amount, you know. Not as much as you think, though. Residential doesn't actually impose that much, but it is a lot of units. But what they're going to be asked to do is, and I think we already did, is they're going to be asked to look at not only capacity. We're not only going to look at capacity of the entire wastewater plant, but we're going to look at every little checkpoint along the way. The pumps, I believe there are a minimum of 2 before you even get one. I know there's Fairgrounds, and then it may make it all the way to the Kingston pump, and then from there it goes to Silver Lake. So we're going to look at least Kingston pump and also the Kingston pump station, and also the Fairgrounds pump station, which I believe is the biggest obstacle. And then conveyance would be the pipe systems, that they're all able to convey the ethanol as well. The way the wastewater plant works is that it was developed in the 70s. The town, South Kingstown, looked to address all of the core urban area. Okay, so that's why you see most of the infrastructure in the Wakefield area. It does expand out to Fairgrounds because when APC came in, they received a grant to expand it out in that area, and that's why APC has it. But it did go as far as, I believe, it went all the way down to where the train station was. And I think APC might have extended it down Fairgrounds anyways. But the way it was developed, the way the wastewater treatment plant was developed was that it's 3 partners. It's South Kingstown, URI, and Narragansett. So Narragansett picks up all the north end of Narragansett, and it makes its way down Narrow River effectively and into different pump stations. I think it's called Whedon Street over by the pier. There's a pump station there by that pond there, and that'll send it up to the treatment plant from there. URI, every bit of URI goes to the Kingston pump station. Okay, and that's pumped up to Upper College Road, and then by gravity, it makes its way all the way to Silver Lake. Okay, and it's a very large gravity line. It starts out at 21 inch. It increases to 24 inches. It's a pretty big effluent line. URI, when the initial investments were made, South Kingstown ponied up most of the money. URI put in a lot of money, and then Narragansett put in a lot of money. And so the percentage of capacity at the time, it was 4.13 million gallons a day of the plant, was distributed among partners based on how much they invested. Okay, Narragansett very quickly determined that they were in tough shape. So what Narragansett did with South Kingstown, they partnered to increase the capacity to a 5 million gallon a day plant, and both ponied up a little money. URI didn't put in any additional funds, but their capacity is perfectly fine. So generally the way it lays out, and I can tell you what the actual values are, but at a 5 million gallon plant, the way the investments work, South Kingstown occupies about 42.5%, Narragansett at 24 and a little bit less than 0.5%, and URI at 33%. Okay, that's the allotment for that 5 million gallons. Now, generally, South Kingstown runs at about 40% of its allotment. So we have a lot of capacity. URI is running even far less. I mean, they're running at 30% of their capacity, which is even much lower than South Kingstown, but they're only at 30%. Narragansett, on the other hand, has exceeded their capacity. And the way the partnership agreements work is that once one of the partners reaches 80% of their capacity, it becomes an issue. Narragansett is purchasing capacity from URI, because URI has excess. They're purchasing, renting, I guess, purchasing 200,000 gallons a day. But even with that 200,000 gallons, well, this past year data showed that Narragansett still has 78% of their capacity with the 200,000 gallons. Without it, they're over 90%.
Wow.
Last year, they were 112% for the year, and they were still at 90% with the 200,000 gallon purchase. So they're still struggling. They're going to address it in the recent URI has worked with us in the solicitor's office, and the recent agreement that URI has with Narragansett on the purchase of additional flow is that they have to address their increases and their overall flow. So they're going to try to bring their flows down. But generally, the plant is running at that 2.5 million gallons a day zone. So generally the plant is low, and we don't ever really get to that 80% mark without heavy rainfall. When the rainfall happens heavily, it causes us problems, I&I problems, it's infiltration of the pipe systems. And Narragansett and South Kingstown both have issues, but Narragansett's I think a little higher, but we both have issues. And what you see is that our levels are much higher. Last year, South Kingstown was running at almost 100,000 gallons a day, 70 to 80,000 gallons a day higher on average, and Narragansett was running at almost 100,000 gallons a day on average. That's why their flows are much less this past year. The year before was when we all saw an increase. Heavy rainfall. You saw that we didn't have a water dam for 2 years in a row, right? So that's another
Next question.
That's a downfall in having increased rainfall events with our sewer systems. So there are treatments for that, and we're working on that.
How do you, in order to maintain this equilibrium, do you take future building plans from the university, such as the hotel and new dorms, and how does that fit into the equation?
Well, the university will provide us any information we need. If they're proposing a new development, they are. They just put in a PFAS plant, and what they're doing is they're expanding that plant to be treatment for iron and manganese, and in order to do that, they have to connect a sewer line. So with that process, we've requested sewer demands for that. If they're going to do large infrastructure projects, not always, but I think in more recent times, they're providing that information to us. In the past, we haven't really needed it because their flows are so low. They also do. Each partner is required to submit what's called a facilities plan to DEM, and that facility plan covers all of what our expected flows are going to be. It goes to DEM for approvals, and they review it, and all the partners get to review each other's plans, and we're in the process of developing our latest update. Narragansett just submitted one to DEM, and URI is about to submit theirs to DEM. So that shows all of those future projections, and it's supposed to project out, I think it's a 20-year projection. But generally, you look at that 5 to 10 year range, and you can be pretty confident of those, especially with a place like URI. They're pretty good with their master planning process, so they do have a good layout.
So if we looked at the infrastructure map, we looked at the sewer map, is there any areas where there is concern with any of the pump stations or pipe size, or looking at that map, should we feel good about potentially increasing the density along any of those areas?
So the analysis for that particular development will show us some of that. They're going to have to look at all the infrastructure all the pipe flow, all between that development and the Kingston Pump Station, I'm going to be concerned about all of it. I generally like to see, just from a professional standpoint, I don't want to see any pipe go beyond 65% capacity. It's like a rule of thumb that we always used when I was working. I got to try to research whether there is some sort of standard with that. But that's what I'm going to look for. Is to see, once you start exceeding 65%, then I may want to see improvements in the actual conveyance system. I'm certainly going to want to make sure the pumps are all operational and that we're not doing too much without pumps. I will tell you one area that I'm always concerned about. It's a section of roadway on Curtis Corner Road, and we've talked about it. I talked about it with Jamie, and it's between the police station and Vespia, the new development there. And it's because that pipe is laid particularly flat. I think it's like
Just that short section on Curtis Corner,
it's
just
only a
from,
short section. It's laid flat between 0.3% or something. It's very, very flat, and it's also, I think, what is it? It's 12 inch or 15 inch. It needs to be sized up. Even a 3-inch size up would make a world of difference for that pipe. I'm always concerned about that because there's a lot happening down Curtis Corner, and each year I'm required to prepare the project improvements list. PIP, is that what it's called? Yeah, I'm required to provide a PIP to DEM and the Department of Health, one for the water system, for the Department of Health, and I'm also required to provide one. That way, if you're looking for grant dollars, they want to know that these projects are on those lists. It's not just something we're pulling out of the sky, we're actually preparing for things. So I do put on there expansions in that Curtis Corner area. So, and the Curtis Corner South Road area. So I'm always in the back of my mind worried that if we do expand sewers in that area, we're gonna have problems with that one particular one. It's not the end of the world to fix it. It's a matter of replacing the pipe and putting in a larger size. You can maintain the same slope, which we have to. We don't really have a choice in that matter. But I think just upsizing that section of pipe would do a world of difference.
you just talking about police station in Vespia, or does that pipe go up to the school?
No, it doesn't go, I don't
Just
think,
that-
I think
just
it
that
might go
small
past,
section.
didn't we determine that once already? I can't remember what it was.
I mean, it's
It
not
might
that
go
many
past
houses
Vespia.
there.
It might go past.
It
might
goes
go-
to Curtis Corner School.
Does it go all the way?
Goes to the school.
Yeah, all right, so it does go a little further down, but which isn't much further than what that is, but yeah.
The upper part of South Road, doesn't that cut across back that way, or back behind the softball fields behind the school?
It ducks, well, it connects up through, what's the name of that development?
So the southern sewer line in the Curtis Corner area runs down Curtis Corner Road past police station, past Vespia to the elementary school. North of South Road School, there is a sewer line, but that comes in from the northern side, and
Yeah, then
you
what-
can't connect the two.
It goes over to Kingstown Road, but
Goes over
by
Kingstown.
easement, it goes through, and I'm trying to remember the name of the development, I just was talking
Yeah,
about,
you
it's
guys-
a private development. There's an easement through there. But as far as where it goes, like South Road, it only makes as far as the berries, if anybody knows what berries are, but that Mulberry area, it makes it as far north as that. But what it does is it goes down to sort of the bottom of that, what's the name of that development? It's old, Allen, what's the name of it? Sweet Allen Farm.
Yeah.
There's a pump station, Sweet Allen Farm. So what you'll see is that in Curtis Corner, you'll see that click on, click off thing, when the pumps click on Sweet Allen, it grabs all of that development and sends it down Curtis Corner Road. Comes in a big flush, and that's the flush that I'm worried about. But so far, I've had Champagne Heights has analyzed it. Vespia had to analyze that section of pipe, and so far I've not seen any indication that we are dangerously close, but it's reaching its capacity.
So in terms of, not any specific project, but looking at overall long-range planning and with so many unknowns as far as density of projects that, as I said earlier, are not necessarily related to our zoning ordinance, how can we make an effort to plan for capacity or plan for areas that might be more environmentally sensitive? It's difficult if the detailed planning doesn't happen until a project comes specifically before you, as opposed to looking at the big picture, which is what we're supposed to be doing in our long-range planning efforts.
Well, I mean, I don't know the answer to that necessarily, but all I can tell you is that it's built into your planning process already, that they have to come in as serviceability. So, you know, if you're seeing the serviceability, you get that information. If it's indicating that you've got this person or this development is looking for a lot of different things, you know, like fairgrounds, then those are cause for concern. As far as long-term comp plan, I mean, the service area is shown in our comp plan. I think are we obligated to provide sewer for all those properties within that comp plan? I don't know. I mean, the comp plan, when that service area was defined and when all these parameters were defined, I don't know that affordable housing legislation was a thing, and whether some of these industrial sites could be required to, or could be allowed to put in 100 to 300 units, I don't know.
Is there any way?
But I will add though that I think I've requested some of the data from, I'm sorry to interrupt, but I've requested some of the data from APC. I'm interested to know if they actually use more volume than what can be expected from that residential development that's being proposed. And it may be more. It may be more. So, and what we're finding, like at the Commons, their original projections and their design of their system was way beyond what they're actually producing over there, and they're really maxed out. Even with the new development that they're proposing, or that they're constructing now over there, that you all approved, you know, they're still not near where they were projected to be. So, and I don't know if that has to do with the types of fixtures that we're using now, because a lot of the stuff was developed when uses were different. You know, DEM used to require for a septic system of 140 gallons per day, and now they're at 115. So, and no property uses that much. I mean, generally speaking, unless you're, we can tell by water use, unless you're irrigating your yard, you are using 90 to 100 gallons for a household. So it's far less than what some of our design parameters are, first of all, because we all design around those OWTS design regulations, but they are they've got a factor of safety built into them. So we require that design, just in case, you don't know. And then we're waiting on that, and also I think a lot of our infrastructure is just, the types of things we put in our houses are just less.
So I have a question. So we're talking about sewer capacity.
Yes.
Is overland flow into storm drains differentiated from what we're talking about here, or is it all the same?
Overland flow, so these are not combined systems. So they're not, so drainage systems are separate from sewer systems. You'll see in real urban areas like Providence, they have a combined system in some places, right? And they try to phase that out, and they're doing really well with it. But here we have separated systems. But I do have, what I suggested was that we have an I&I problem. So what that means is that water is coming up, groundwater is going up, it's making its way into the system just by weak points in the system, in the conveyance. So it's making its way into manholes, making its way into pipes. So that's a problem. And also you might have a manhole in a low-lying area and water is pooling there and it's just pouring into these systems. That can happen. So we actually just finished a study and we're going to be putting it out for construction. We decided just have to get it on the capital, but it is you know, we've squirreled away money over the years. But what it is, it's a study. It's a process where we send like these the company that selected will send cameras into the system, into our operating system. And it's the main trunk line going from URI all the way to Silver Lake. I want to do the entire lane. And they can actually fix leaks that they find. They can grout it on the fly. So those are the types of processes you can do, things you can do to fight I&I. The other thing is people are, Narragansett will tell you everybody's putting a sump pump into the sewer system. I mean, I'm sure that some are, but there are also methods for handling that as well. So those are things we have to take care of. But when you talk about drainage in the water system, the sewer system in this town, that's really the only thing we're talking about is I.
Okay. And so when you talked about South Kingstown and Narragansett, you're talking about the whole of South Kingstown and Narragansett, or are we in zones? Like when you were talking about what capacity South Kingstown's at,
Yeah.
is that the whole of the town, or is that just, are you talking about the
No,
Kingston
well-
Water District area, or just a portion of, like, is it the whole town?
It's the whole of the sewer service area.
Right.
Which is,
Okay.
I mean, we have 5,000, 4,000 maybe services, 4 to 5?
Yep.
Maybe 4. Narragansett has, about the same. So that would be just the service area, which is the core center, and it goes, again, all the way up to URI.
Right.
So not the whole time.
Okay.
Robin?
So, what we're talking about is our capacity to throw away water. When we talk about being able to pump and being able to, right? But how are we then tying in our recharge problem? And so the more water we can throw away, the more water we need to recharge.
Well, so the water's being pumped out of the ground in one particular place and being sent all over the town. So, even the recharge might not be happening in the area where that water's being pumped, because the way our systems work, we got well water. And the wells, all of our water for us, and even in the South Shore, is pulled from the Mink aquifer. So, there is a concern there that you're pulling 5 million out and there is no recharge. So, there are an awful lot of people, in the South Shore is one of them, that you have, I guess, sort of the opposite of the problem, right? So you're pulling water from Veolia Water on Tuckertown, but you only have septic systems in the South Shore, and they are infiltrating all of that water into the ground in South Shore. So it's sort of the opposite of the problem, where you're pulling from a different place. So you're either doing one or the other. Now, the only problem is the 2.5 million gallons a day that are going to the wastewater treatment plant are being discharged to the ocean.
Gone, thrown away. And so when we consider density in future development, don't we need to also factor in the problem with our loss of recharge? It's fine to say.
Just the process of waste removal, is what it is. I can't answer that.
Right, and it's
So
great to be able to
can't-
remove it, but it is a resource that you're depleting when you talk about high density.
Yeah, again, in a different place, but yes.
It's the same aquifer.
No, it's not.
It's the aquifers that we rely on, and what causes water bans are the recharge areas we're talking about.
No, I don't necessarily agree with that. I think that you're pulling from that, right, you're pulling from that, but there is no recharge happening at all in that area. Yeah, I guess that, yeah. But it's the Mink, all our water comes from the Mink aquifer, so.
All our water comes from what?
The Mink aquifer.
Yeah, but if we don't keep recharging it, we're not gonna be able to draw on it.
Yeah, I can't answer that question, I'm just talking about.
To add
Capacity.
sort of to Robin's question, we've had a lot of community concern about the water restrictions, the water bans, 15 out of 18 years. How do we look at that? What do we need to do for future capacity?
Yeah, and what I represented to the council
Yeah.
was that I want to see an ordinance, an irrigation ordinance, because from my data and what I have, again, it's, just, so from my data, we have plenty of capacity for the residential use and for industrial use and whatever we're using. We do not have the capacity for the amount of irrigation that's being, thrown up in the air. That's my, I can look at all the data, but I'm only looking at the South Shore. I'm not looking at Veolia's, they don't have the type of meters we have in residential homes. So we have a metering system that's meshed and shows me by the hour what people are consuming, so. So I'm just telling you that from my
Not
data.
Kingston, then.
showed- Was that?
And that not Kingston either.
Kingston Water's not included.
Right.
They have 1,200 services. They're a relatively small system. They're not included in that.
But there's not many in Kingston that are out big lawns that are being irrigated, so in Kingston.
I don't think they're.
There's not that much in
I
Kingston.
think that the bigger problem is not even Wakefield. I think the bigger problem is the South Shore and it's Narragansett. Because remember that Veolia is pulling from, again, getting along those lines of what you're suggesting is, Veolia is pulling from a single aquifer and sending over to Narragansett. Veolia is looking, by the way, at expanding their system, putting wells in different places, different locations. So, that helps, but there's still a bunch of it going into the wastewater system. And all of Narragansett goes into wastewater system, discharge into the ocean. We're all ocean discharge around there.
Any idea when, since we're talking about water, when and if DEM's going to update their criteria for the 100-year storm?
No, I don't know the answer to that.
Been waiting for many years for that to happen.
I haven't heard anything from that. If we hear anything, we'll mark it.
The only thing, Maria, they did do on the 100-year storm, I want to say they did it a couple years ago, they did change the rainfall amounts.
Yeah, well, that was,
Was it
2010, they started that process, and then actually didn't implement it until 2015, I think, or something, so, what they do is they just increased the rainfall number. That was the last update I've seen.
Other thoughts, questions, Joe?
So looking at the area surrounding downtown, let's say MacArthur Boulevard, Cherry Lane to Kenyon, across the street to Columbia, those areas, you don't see any issues with capacity for water and sewer now?
Not yet.
So, I mean, if we're looking at,
Not all the homes, and by the way, in my carpet area, not all the homes are sewer.
there are still some septic over
There are
there?
a couple of roads there that aren't, and I think the only way to do it would be through a force main system. And I've thought about that, maybe allowing that, just to get them all sewered.
But I mean, so we're considering some zoning changes to allow like manor houses and take some of the houses and turn them into 3 or 4 units, but we really, that would probably be here and there, so really no issue with that from your infrastructure perspective.
No, I mean, no.
'Cause you've got enough capacity.
We're at 40% of our
Yeah.
capacity, so.
Well, part of this discussion is also one we started to discuss it at our last meeting, but it's cumulative impact,
Yeah,
You have.
I agree. But you would have to double what you have now.
And that's not gonna happen, yeah, it would only be here and there, so we got plenty of capacity, it sounds
We
like.
have plenty of capacity.
Yeah,
Again, my concern really is Narragansett is exceeding what they are allowed, and that's a problem, but we're trying to get our arms around it, and we'll address it. It may require an increase in capacity at the plant. If that's the case, we all benefit, and I'm us for it.
Anything else for Rich? I'm sure you'll hear from us again, but thank you for coming.
It was very helpful.
We-
Yeah, very
yeah, we're,
That's what I have, but,
all right. Thanks, Rich.
thank you.
Let's move on to our next item, which is Old Tower Hill Road Form-Based Code. Jamie?
So again, Madam Chair, thank you. With regards to form-based codes, we continue to read, edit, think, adjust. I do have a scheduled call with Jason and Pam this Friday to look at dates in January and February and try and coordinate a workshop with the town council to bring them up to speeds prior to looking at the actual regulatory changes that would require the public hearing after that workshop. I think it would be premature and perhaps ill-advised to go direct to a regulatory change without having that workshop with the town council. I think that the workshop will allow the town council and, with planning board participation to fully understand and grasp the changes, why the changes are being made, what the implications of those changes are, and also understand that there will, in all likelihood, be property owners within the area that's being proposed for change that are gonna speak in opposition of the change. But we've describe this as a community endeavor, not an individual property by property endeavor. This is something the town council, EDC, planning board asked the department to look at. We have that draft, and this is, through the vetting and workshop, something that it appears the community as a whole would like to see move forward. And again, that may be against individuals' views within the district, but I think the community view far outweighs the potential of an individual within the community who may be in opposition of this.
Do we have a general idea of time frame as far as having that meeting?
We're going in the budget season,
Right,
so I'm
exactly.
trying to coordinate with the
That's
town
why.
manager's office of what the availability would be of the council in late January, early February.
Okay,
So when I know, you guys will know.
okay,
So,
sounds good. Anything from planning board liaison activities from anybody? Joe?
I'll just say the Affordable Housing Committee did have a meeting, I did attend. The early part of it, the first part of it was really just some staff updates that Brian gave, and then after that, they moved on to Fairgrounds Road, and since that's in front of the planning board, I left for that part.
Okay. The landscape subcommittee of the planning board was supposed to meet last week, the same night as our regular meeting, and that has been rescheduled to January 7th, is that right, Jamie? Is it the 7th?
that sounds right.
Yes.
Do we have a time for that yet?
4 o'clock.
Okay.
Update from planning staff? Legislative?
Again, we're still down on staff. We're hopefully gonna fill that gap shortly. And, moving forward on the regulatory side, Tracy is coming up to speed, and pulling her own weight as the GIS coordinator in her role as the principal planner. I don't think we've received any negative feedback with regards to being able to make maps, continue the program. So she has kept pace with what Carol was doing, working on mobile apps with DPS and trying to make things a little more efficient within both the town and the planning department. So.
Very good. And you'll note that there's a note about a withdrawn application for Peacedale Preserve on our agenda.
Yeah, so just as an update, you did have an application for a zoning map amendment and text amendment associated with the Peacedale Reserve, shooting range, gun range. They, after meeting with staff, decided to withdraw their application, reevaluate what they intend to do with the property, potentially institute more of a master plan scenario for the property, and then that master plan will drive potential text amendment versus a broad stroke of the pen that just lists a whole bunch of uses that they may contemplate or not contemplate over the next, 20, 30 years. I mentioned to their planning staff from the developer that in most instances, when you utilize a special management district, that special management district is contingent upon some sort of master plan. So the planning board, town council understands that if you change the regulations for this particular acreage in this particular area of town, you have some understanding of what that development may look like in the future versus, I could ask everybody to just sit here for a moment, close your eyes, and imagine how wonderful it will be. Just trust me.
Yeah.
So we're trying to dot some i's, cross some t's, potentially work with this landowner on looking at how that would be accomplished.
Jamie,
Versus just throwing stuff on the wall and saying, I may want to do that.
Is there a definition as to what a preserve is in this context?
So in the context that they were originally discussing with the planning department staff, that the hunting preserve, hunting kind of nomenclature would include a gun range component, outdoor shooting component, as well as guest cottages, as well as clubhouse type facilities. If it can equate it to a golf course and a clubhouse, that, you know, the shooting range is kind of the golf component, the clubhouse is the clubhouse for the members. They may have weddings, they may have member gatherings, there may be a restaurant open to the membership.
But it's predominantly about guns?
Right, that is what the property is about now. So the primary draw would, that I'm aware of, would be the gun club.
Right, so, I mean, that's what we take preserve to mean, is
That, the preserve on this property is associated with, the gun range and the outdoor,
clay
clay
pitches.
shooting.
Yeah.
But again, you know, as membership expands, as they look to diversify economically and membership-wise, membership's asking for more things. You know, they want a clubhouse, they potentially want a restaurant they can go to, they potentially want guests to have a place to stay when they come for a weekend for an event.
Yeah, yeah.
They potentially want a place to store their all-terrain vehicle that they have on the property for the clay shoots that they're putting on a trailer and bringing back and forth every other weekend. So there were components of that. I think in the initial submission, the number of uses far exceeded the kind of nomenclature of a preserve and accessory uses. So I'm not saying that's a good or a bad thing. I think if they go beyond kind of that understanding of what a preserve is, you know, a golf course with a clubhouse and a driving range type of scenario, if you go beyond that, I think you really need to look at how you're doing a master plan for the 122 acres. You know, are you having a housing component? Are you having more accessory uses? Are you having storage other than, you know, the four-wheel drive vehicles? What are you intending to do? What is your full build out of the 122 plus or minus acres? Similar to what the town did with South County Commons. You would have never just changed the zoning for South County Commons, not understanding what South County Commons was intended to be, right? Renderings, drawings, site plans, you know, a true master plan.
Thanks. Let's go to the next agenda item, update on legal issues. Andy, there's upcoming training and land use legislation regulatory implications to local regulations.
Nothing really new to report. I mean, I think you know, but for the others, there was recently a presentation before the June Speakman's Committee.
LOMOD Commission.
By both the League of Cities and Towns.
Yes.
And I had a long conversation with CJ Donovan before that, giving him the benefit of my input. And then there was also a presentation by APA, I think essentially with Jane Weidman, her memo. I don't know who actually delivered it.
Ashley Sweet.
Okay.
Perhaps we could send that link to board members so they could watch it?
Yeah.
I think so. Should
Yeah.
be available.
It's-
I
it's-
guess,
yeah, it's through
the
Capital
statewide
TV.
Capital
Yep.
TV. So, so things are, you know, the only thing I can tell you is that things will be different again next year. There will be more legislative changes next year. What they will be, I don't know. I suspect there'll be corrections of some of the stuff that was done this year. There'll be some little bit of that. I suspect there'll be more things to make more things administrative approvals and require less public hearings, particularly if any kind of housing whatsoever is involved. And I wonder if they may tackle historic district zoning and figure that that may be an impediment to housing as well, so they may want to rewrite that. Those are my, and zoning boards will continue to get less, we will continue on the path towards one municipal
Yeah.
permitting authority and not two.
Yep.
Although surprisingly, zoning boards have come back to life because people are doing ADUs, but they're not meeting the requirements. So they're coming for dimensional variances for the ADUs that they're asking for. So suddenly there's been this uptick of business, at least in the zoning boards that I've been seeing, of dimensional variances for ADUs. Talk about unintended consequences. but
Yeah.
That's what I've seen. So, that's it.
Are there
And
any?
training,
Oh, training. Are there any plans for doing, we, every couple of years used to do an ethics kind of training?
Not really, I mean, the ethics
quite a while
commission
ago.
really does it
Yeah,
themselves.
Amy
They-
did one for us.
Yeah, I mean, I think we will have, at some point in the late winter, early spring, we'll do a live program here in town,
Okay,
which will be a combination of stuff,
yep,
dealing with Open Meetings Act
Yep.
and ethical stuff. We'll have a combination training there.
okay.
But I don't know exactly when. We'll try to also coordinate it to like get multiple boards at once.
Yeah,
come to it.
we did last time.
So, and if we have a big enough space, we might invite neighboring communities.
Great,
Nothing
Okay.
definite at the moment.
all right, thank you. If there's nothing else, would someone like to make a motion to adjourn?
I'll make that motion.
Motion from Caper, second?
I'll second.
Second from Liz. All those in favor say aye. Aye. Motion carries. Happy holidays, everyone.
And
See you next year.